Welcome to this first edition of my new series, Plug and Play Power Hour, and in it I'll be looking at some of the plug and play devices that have launched over the years. I've got a bunch of them, and in this first episode I'll be looking at the 2002 Jakks Atari TV video game system. With 10 games featured, this may feel a little lightweight compared to many Atari products out there, but this thing released in 2002, so maybe 10 Atari games was just about acceptable back then. I think we've all been spoiled by the consistent release of the Atari flashback devices, but these didn't first launch until 2004, and the earliest ones of these only had around 20 games. It's a bit different these days when most modern Atari flashbacks have 80 or 100 or 120 games on, and we've also got used to the likes of Atari 50 and the Atari Game Station Pro and Atari 400 Mini, where you get dozens of games and have the ability to expand the libraries with hundreds more. The Jax Atari, which is what I'll call it going forward for ease of distinction, has the following 10 games: Asteroids, Gravitar, Circus Atari, Pong, Adventure, Yars Revenge, Breakout, Centipede, Volleyball, and Missile Command. The device is designed as a classic CX40 joystick, and this connects to your TV with component cables, and this released in 2002, so there was zero expectation that this should come equipped with HDMI output. It takes 4 AA batteries and has no option to power via a wall socket. There's an on-off switch on the front of the controller, and this is inset, so you are unlikely to switch it off by mistake. But then there is a reset button, which is a lot riskier to knock by mistake. And then after this, there are start and select buttons in addition to the standard CX40 fire button. With the batteries in, this is weighty in a good way, and the stick feels pretty authentic to the original Atari controller, and it feels much like the Atari 2600 Plus and the CX40 joystick that came out with the Atari 400 Mini, and some people may even think it works slightly better than the latter, as some people have had trouble with it. But not me. The games are all pretty much run as I'd expect them to. The graphics don't look as sharp on my HD TV as they would on a CRT television, where they would look like they're supposed to. But they don't really look that bad either, as games like this are so simple looking because they're just coloured shapes that you don't really need tons of detail for them to look pretty good, even on an HD TV. The games, of course, are all Atari 2600 versions, and even by 2002, many of the games were already 20 plus years old. It's funny to think that even though this device itself is now 22 years old, this launched at the same time that I was playing my Xbox and GameCube. So this device is now as old to us today as the original Atari was to it when it launched, and that's pretty cool. Obviously, this is just a joystick, and there are a few games that would have been better to play with a paddle, but all of the games do play well enough. I did note that when playing Breakout, the ball would often speed up as I moved the joystick in a direction that gave me the sense that perhaps I was controlling both the paddle and the ball's movement at the same time. I feel like this may have been on other versions before, but I don't think you always see this, and it's clearly a glitch of some kind. I'm not sure if I've ever played Circus Atari, or should it be called Atari Circus? Either way, I don't think I've played Circus Atari, as it's called here, ever before, and I really enjoyed it. It's essentially a different version of Breakout, and you have 2 acrobats who you have to bounce off of a seesaw to launch them up to hit the bricks at the top. This was a really fun game, and it's one I can't believe somehow I had missed over the years. Adventure is the classic Zelda-like game from a time before Zelda. In it, you have to move around your character, which is represented with a little square, and you have to fight off giant birds and collect keys as you go through a maze and into castles. It's beyond simple, but it's also quite a fun game that gives you a sense of the origin of the action-adventure genre. I've played Gravitar in the past, and it's a game which I do think I need to put a bit more time into to really get into it. I have the Gravitar Recharged game on the Atari VCS, and I quite like that, but this is another game where I've not put in tons of time into the old school version. It kind of looks like a different version of Asteroids, and it plays like that, but instead of having asteroids flying towards you, you'll have to deal with alien ships, also whilst avoiding being sucked into the gravity of various stars and planets. For me, for now at least, I was happy sticking with Asteroids, as it has more going on and was more pick up and play friendly, and I just really do like the game Asteroids. I wasn't sure if Centipede and Missile Command were easier on this version, but I felt I was bossing them in my playtime with this today. It's worth noting that the select and start buttons are used to get the game going in the same way that you'd have the switches on the actual Atari 2600. So who knows, maybe I just hit this on a easier difficulty setting and just thought that I was the king of all mankind. All of the recent times that I've played Pong, I have played it with a paddle, and whilst it is fine to play with a joystick, I was finding that I was missing a few hits that I don't think I would have missed with a paddle, as I've spent the last couple of years getting used to paddle controls for Pong with the Atari 2600 Plus, Atari VCS, and the GameStation Pro. Volleyball is another game which I don't think I've ever played before, and it highlights to me some of the value in having devices like this that have a limited number of games on them. If I'd got a plug and play with 120 games on there, I don't know if or when I'd ever get around to playing some of the more obscure games or ones that don't initially grab my attention, such as volleyball. It does play like a somewhat more involved game of Pong, but that you have two paddles and that you control both of them at the same time in your two characters that are running around the volleyball court. Is it called a court? I'm not quite sure. And you can also vary how you take the shots. I quite liked it. And lastly, there is Yars Revenge, which is a classic game and a game that when I first played it, I thought you were fighting a giant pair of Y-front underpants in outer space. I also thought the game was glitchy, and the garbled nonsense graphics in the centre of the screen was it going wrong, but now I appreciate this is a zone that you cannot fire from within, and so you either have the choice to get some distance from Yars or get closer to him but then be in more danger as a result, because the spinning wheel of doom will come and fly at you. So that's going to begin to wrap things up for the Jakks Pacific Atari Plug and Play. These are fairly cheap to find on eBay and relatively common. As they're quite old now, who knows if you'll find one that works perfectly, but it seems a decent build quality, so check one out if you can. But of course, there are now a million ways to play these same Atari games, so I think a lot of Atari enthusiasts will either already have one or just gravitate towards a Atari Flashback or GameStation Pro. But I am pleased to have another way to play Atari to add to my collection. I did in fact make a video a few months ago about all the different ways that you have nowadays to be able to enjoy Atari games, and oh gosh, are there a lot of them. So if you haven't seen that video, do check it out on the channel. Since I made it, I've now got this plug and play as well as my Atari 400 Mini, so whilst I'm not going to jump to make a new version 2.0 of that video just yet, it's worth checking this video and the review of my Atari 400 Mini out, as well as the video that shows all the different ways of playing Atari, just so you can truly decide which is the best way and the way for you. So that is now going to wrap up this video. If you haven't done so already, I would appreciate if you would smash that subscribe button here on the Geek Battle Gaming YouTube channel, and I would also appreciate if you head over to www.xstreamed.tv/gaming to get the written article version of today's discussion. And with that, until next time, stay safe always stay extremed, and ciao for now. Boom, and we're off the air.